It's good to see everybody this morning. Thanks for coming back. Since you knew I was going to be back this morning, appreciate that. So my topic is, and if you don't have a copy of the Paul Harvey speech from 1965, there's some in the foyer if you need one. I was going to try to send out like a group message for those that you could play it and listen to it, because my voice is by no means a Paul Harvey voice. He just has that awesome storytelling voice that's good. And so last week, it's amazing how much stuff happens in a week. 4th of July, unbelievable. Totally unbelievable what took place in Illinois. I think it was Thursday, the Prime Minister of Japan gets assassinated during a speech. Paul Harvey's, and I'm going to read this again, but right out of the beginning of his speech, he talks about engulf the world in darkness. And literally last week was a prime example of that around the world, from America to Japan. And Satan's busy. I don't know if it seems like he's busier now than he was in the past. Maybe it's because of technology. It's just now we see it 24/7, 365, nonstop. I literally tried last week to watch different news stations to see what good news was reported. The only one that I could find was Fox 5 in Atlanta. Good Day Atlanta. They always have a piece. They focus on one thing in a community that's good news. Everybody else was zero. It didn't matter if it was local or local news, if it's the big news networks, CNN, Fox, MSNBC. You can't find it. It's like it's extinct, which is sad, because there is a lot of good in the world. Just no one wants to report it because it doesn't sell. Doesn't make money, which is one of the roots of evil. The scripture that I'm using around is Joshua 24:15. But if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, and I highlighted that on my notes, I think that's a big thing nowadays. It's undesirable. For whatever reason, I don't know why people aren't desirable to get to have a relationship with God, to know your life will be easier, be a little less complicated. It's not going to be perfect, but if it seems evil to you to serve the Lord, choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve. Whether the gods which your fathers served that were on the other side of the river, or the gods of the Amorites in the lands whose you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And we have that. My wife is the antique decorator, so we have that on a sign as soon as you walk in the house. And so it's a good reminder. And as I was speaking last week, which Brother Bruce brought up so good about knowing where your children are, whether they're still living with you or whether they're grown and gone, where are they at today? What are they doing today? I had a conversation with one of mine yesterday because he was like, Dad, I want to go to Helen, Georgia. I'm like, okay, bye. You can go. I'm just not preventing you from anything. How early is church? And I said, I don't know. How early is it? What time does it start? Ah, Dad, I hate when you do this. You're giving me these uncomfortable quizzes. And I'm like, look, I can't answer it for you. I said, as your dad, I'm going to, whether you live at home or whether you live on your own, I'm going to ask you, you know what Sunday is? He's like, all right, gotcha. I'm like, okay, what's gotcha mean? No, he said, I'll be at church, Dad, but I'll be at Bremen. And I'm like, okay. And he says, well, they start earlier. And I said, okay, just as long as you're at church and you're paying attention and doing everything that you need to do. And he's like, yeah, okay, all right. And I said, so the other thing I need you to ask yourself, son, why are you asking me this question? You're 19 years old, so as far back as you can remember, you know where you're at on Sundays and Wednesdays. Period. We've had the sports topic come up, going through school with all the kids and everything. And I said, but my bigger question for you is, and what you said last week really sunk in a lot. I go, what example are you setting for Sarah and her mom and dad? That if they ask you to go somewhere and it's on today, and you're asking me what you should do, what are you putting first? And then, he's like, yeah, I got it. I know I shouldn't even said anything. I should have just said, hey, I'm going to go here. And then when church is over, then I'm going to go hang out. And I go, yeah. I go, you're right. I said, one of these days I won't be here. You might be having this conversation with your son or your daughter. I said, so you have to make sure you have the right information and ask the right questions and make sure you're doing the right thing from the beginning. And plus I like putting them on the spot and making them feel nervous anyway. So I'm going to read Paul Harvey's thing, and there's 10 key moments. There's 10 key moments in the speech that he has. One is engulfing the world in darkness, convince man that man created God instead of the other way around, educate authors to make lurid literature exciting, which is whether it's bad books, bad magazines, different things of that nature, threaten TV with dirtier movies and vice versa. That's the generation that's coming up now in school. This is bombardment for them. And it goes to cartoons, kids' cartoons. You just can't turn the TV on anymore and let your child watch cartoons, which is crazy. What's that? My kids think I'm as old as dirt. And so I used to tell them about Saturdays for me was TV day. Any other time, Mom and Dad was like, you go outside and play, street light comes on, you better be on the porch. And that's it. And I yell for you one time, so you're young and your hearing is really good, so you should be able to hear me. And so Saturday I could go watch cartoons. Mom and Dad didn't have to worry about anything. And then one of our grandchildren was watching the movie Cars. I think it's rated G. It had like 2 cuss words in it that I never caught. But they did. And I guess just not paying attention. And I'm like, why? What's the purpose? But now the way they not only put certain phrases in there, and then the way they dress up the characters in it is crazy. The other thing is, number 5 is peddle narcotics, sell alcohol to distinctive people. Tranquilize, number 6 was tranquilize society with pills, have church versus church, nation versus nation. The speech was in 1965, and you see this happening everywhere right now. It's really unbelievable. Number 8 kind of can be a sensitive topic in the church because his number 8, as I read it, it'll say, symbolize Easter as an egg and Christmas as a bottle, which I know that can be a touchy thing, but when the world and everybody goes to celebrate those times, that's what they do. Christmas, they're having alcohol and they're just partying away and whatever the case may be. Number 9 is promote gambling, attack patriotism and moral conduct. And number 10, attack marriage, promote swinging, which brings on incurable diseases. So I'm going to read Mr. Harvey's speech, and then we will discuss some more. If I were the devil, if I were the prince of darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness. And I'd have 1/3 of its real estate, 4/5 of its population, but I wouldn't be happy until I seized the ripest apple on the tree, thee. So I'd set out about, however necessary, to take over the United States. I'd subvert the churches first. I'd begin with a campaign of whispers, with wisdom of a serpent. I'd whisper to you as I whispered to Eve, do as you please. To the young, I would whisper that the Bible's a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what's bad is good, what's good is square. And the old I would teach to pray after me, our Father who art in Washington. And then I'd get organized. I'd educate authors on how to make lurid literature exciting, so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies and vice versa. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I'd sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. I'd tranquilize the rest with pills. If I were the devil, I'd soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, nations at wars with themselves, until each is turned as was consumed. And with a promise of higher ratings, I'd have mesmerizing media fanning the flames. If I were the devil, I'd encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect to discipline emotions. I will bring that up on the recent events that happened on July 4th. Just let those run wild until before you knew it, you'd have to have drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at every schoolhouse door. Within a decade, I'd have prisons overflowing. I'd have judges promoting pornography. Soon I could evict God from the courthouse, then from the schoolhouse, then from the houses of Congress. And his own churches, I would substitute psychology for religion, deify science. I would lure priests and pastors into misusing boys and girls in church and money. If I were the devil, I'd make the symbols of Easter an egg and the symbol of Christmas a bottle. If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who want until I have killed the incentive of being ambitious. And what do you bet I could get whole states to promote gambling as the way to get rich? I could caution against extremes in hard work and patriotism and moral conduct. I would convince the young that marriage is old-fashioned, that swinging is more fun, that what you see on TV is the way to be. And thus, I could undress you in public. I could lure you into bed with diseases which there is no cure. In other words, I would just keep on doing what I've been doing. There's a lot in there. One thing I was looking at this past, I did some looking into the young man that did the atrocities on July 4th. family is just a mess. Just a mess. Father's a mess. Mother's a mess. Everything that Paul Harvey had in here, drugs, alcohol, child abuse, neglect. All the signs of everything that's not of God was in that family. And everything for that young man's life going through school, just like Paul Harvey said in here, I would get organized and attack the school. It just kept going from year to year, moving forward, and nothing was ever done. So he's a product of a family not going to church and putting God first. Because mom and dad didn't care. Dad was a drinker. Mom was a drug user. And he's just left to fend for himself. Child abuse comes in many forms and fashions, whether it can be physical or mental. And emotional. Probably that might be worse. Because it leaves scars you can't see. And I think it's an area that the church, and as I was talking about last week, there's a lot of things I think this is personally me, some things that we don't like to discuss just because we don't want to have the conflict of that conversation, or maybe we don't want to be, or maybe we seem intrusive, like, how are you doing? Like, I don't know you as well as I know someone else, so just in passing by, hey, how you doing? I'm doing good. Okay. Well, that's just a 30-second polite courtesy. And I think in general, I think we're uncomfortable maybe digging in, or maybe we just don't know each other as well as we should, because if us in here don't take care of each other and support each other, like I mentioned last week, we're all going to be on the same cloud when we go to heaven. So what's going to be any different from here and up there? That's a lot.
Yeah, how do we figure we're going to get to heaven? We're all going to, when we all get to heaven, which by the way is my favorite song. When we all get to heaven, and we don't even like each other here, we need to learn that love, I hate to say love is the answer, but love is the answer. Look at 1 John, 2 John, 3 John, look at the book of John. John's pretty emphatic about this. If we don't love one another as Christ, as God loved us in sending His Son, as Christ loved us in going to the cross.
If the world just did the two greatest commandments, where would we be? Especially the second one. Love thy neighbor. I don't think there's a lot of people that unfortunately want to do that. And that might sound bad, but Mm-hmm.
And it starts with me. If I'm good to others, others will be good to me. But it starts with me. And I'm the answer to all the problems in the world. And by the way, so are you. And that's the truth of Christianity. Is you go and teach Christ crucified to all the world, to everybody you come in contact with. Bruce, go and teach the gospel. Ann, Jennifer,
Fill in the blank.
Larissa, fill in the blank. Everybody in the room, you're the answer to all the problems in the world. And as soon as you start doing your job, they'll all be done. But I have to go do it.
Yeah, I don't think, whether inside or outside the church, I don't think a lot of people look at it that way. Which is sad because it's not, in my view, it's not difficult. I know some people have, my wife's not going to like this, but she said, and I can't remember how she phrases it, but I'm a gabber. I'll talk to anybody. It doesn't matter who it is. We'll be standing in line at fast food somewhere, and I'll just start chatting with the person in front of me or behind me or whatever. And I know everybody's not like that, and so which will make it difficult if you don't have that personality and go and teach the gospel. And then you put that on top of it, it's going to make it 10 times harder. And I think a lot of times it's like someone else can do that part. I'm gonna do this part over here at the church building. I'm gonna fill in the blank, whatever that task may be. But this part right here, I'm gonna leave that to Brother Bruce. I'm gonna leave that to Brother Tommy. I'm gonna leave that to Brother Dwayne. Things like that. And I get it, it's understandable, but it's not going to help the overall picture of showing what the church is like, especially when it comes to difficult topics. I have this conversation a lot regarding homosexuality. I have someone in my family that's gay. And I've told friends, like, what are you going to do? And I go, what do you mean am I going to do? I go, I still love her. I don't like the actions. I'm not ugly. I'm not ugly to her. I still treat her like my aunt. But we've had conversations about, it's here, even with my mom. I said, love her to death, but Mom, it says in here. I go, and I said, don't take my word for it. Ron's saying it, but Ron didn't say it. God said it, that particular individual is not going to go to heaven if they don't change. And I think that's where it comes in several different areas of the wrong approach. You can run, I think that's how a lot of people get ran away from church, because of the way someone has come to them to talk about the church. It's almost like you get the phone call for the bill collector. I don't recognize that number. I'm not taking that call. I'm not taking that call. I know who they are. It's the same way you can apply that the same way with the church and talking to someone about the gospel. If you don't do it the right way, we're going to keep doing everything that Paul Harvey has in this speech. That we're not putting any kind of roadblocks in front of the devil when it comes to our kids and it comes to the family and it comes to things that out in the world to bring people to Christ. And it goes with back to the young man from Illinois and what he did. Who would, if just one person at some point in that young man's life just pulled him under their wing and just maybe had a conversation. How's it going? You okay? Everything okay at home? Because teachers at school, first of all, I couldn't be one because I either get fired or arrested because some middle schooler in 7th or 8th grade and on up to high school, I'd probably lose my mind. And I know that's probably not the right thing to say, but I'm just saying the way kids are today, God love teachers that are in school and teaching these kids. Being a teacher, probably being a therapist, being a psychologist, all in one with everything that's going on, and they usually catch things first.
Somebody somewhere should have sat down and said, hey, let's talk. Let's talk. And it's hard to talk to a kid. I have grandchildren who will talk to me and don't talk to their parents. I had a grandson who got a haircut while he was here. And you will notice that he got a haircut because it still looks like he's a haircut. But and you got this. So you know this, but and his parents were, you need to get a haircut, you need to get a haircut. And I asked him, I said, would you go with me to get a haircut? And he said, I don't need a haircut. I said, no. I said, I just want you to go ride with me. Okay? So he rode with me. So we're going out to the car, and he looks at his grandmother, and he says, you know, I could use a trim to kind of neaten it up. So he did. He got 3 inches cut off of it.
Wow.
Now, if Tom Smith were here, he would tell you that, where? And he's right. I watched him cut 3 inches off, and I still don't know where. But it did look neater. Okay?
But you didn't twist his arm either.
I didn't twist his arm. I didn't even say you need to get a haircut. I just said, if you want to, that'll be fine. Okay? I just said, would you go with Granddaddy? I just want to go with you and talk to you. And we talked about things that he's interested in. Not, do you get a haircut? Get a haircut. And he will do that because, see, I remember my father having a fit when hairstyles got long and my brother got his down to his shoulders. And now my brother doesn't have any hair, just like my daddy didn't have any hair. And I told my daddy when he was having the fit, I said, Dad, it's going to all fall out. Don't worry about it.
God will take care of it.
Yep. It's just a passing thing. It'll all fall out. And at 60-something, my brother's hair is all falling out. We get worried about the wrong things. That grandson was more concerned this summer about his sister being baptized than anything else he worried about. He talked to her more about being baptized than he talked about anything else. So his focus was in the right path. If we do what Moses told us to do, I love you, Brian. and we talk about God and God's ways to our children and our children's children and our children's children's children, we have a chance of getting them to be faithful and avoiding what Mr. Harvey talked about. But if we don't, and sometimes you can't. Sometimes you need your dad to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you need somebody else to do it. But we need to talk to these people because they are people. Both of my sons are very good fathers. But at times, I see my grandchildren look at their parents and roll their eyes. And I know what that means. You know what that means. When your children,
Yeah.
you're talking to them and their eyes are just, yeah, I know about him. You need somebody else to talk to them. And I don't know, I don't know how much family you've got close by, and I don't know what your situation is, but they need a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle or somebody they can talk to when you weren't there. Our children, when they were growing up, had two grandmothers. And they were extremely possessive of those grandmothers. You could talk about anybody you wanted to, but don't talk about Mimi and Mama, because that'd get you hurt. And they could go talk to them about anything. That was their sounding board.
And I think that's a big problem with the generation that's out of school now. Which would be my kids. Not necessarily them, but they didn't. That generation, like you said, needs someone to talk to. Whether there's only so much you're going to talk to your parents about. I understand that, but they need someone that they can confide in and not have to worry about, is it going to get back to mom and dad in the wrong way? And our children have that, they have some good friends of ours that go to other churches of Christ, Lithia and Villa Rica and Shannon Road, that they can talk to, and some youth leaders that we have had in the past that we have really still good relationships with, and they treat our kids like if they were their kids. And they'll say, hey, look, if you're out, well, Aaron Owenby is one. He's a good friend of our family. He tells our kids before, look, if you're out with your friends and something goes crazy and you don't want to call mom and dad, you better call me. Because I don't care what I'm doing or where I'm at, I'm coming for it. And that's huge. That's huge. And I would trust our kids' lives with Aaron and Lindsay in a heartbeat. And something I was meant to bring up last week, and I had this conversation a few years ago when we were having a class, and it kind of agitated some people that's in my age range that have kids. And this is me, I believe my generation of raising kids is the one that started 1, 2, 3. Did I tell you to take out the trash? I'm not going to tell you again. I'm not going to tell you again. I really believe that. And I had some good friends that were like, oh, no. And I'm like, well, just think about it. Growing up, when mom and dad told us in here to do fill in the blank, what did we do? There was two options. You did it, or you felt the pain because you didn't do it when it was asked for it to be done.
And that's so true because when kids learn that you don't really mean what you say, then they start thinking, well, maybe God doesn't really mean what he says either.
Exactly. And unfortunately, if they think that, when Judgment Day comes, there's no retake. There's no, I failed the test. I made a 69, which is an F, instead of a 70 as a D. The score is the score. And I had a lot of friends our age agree, like, yeah. Because I think what happened was, the more I look into what Paul Harvey was saying, is that my parents sacrificed everything they could to be better for me, to give me maybe a little bit better than what they had. I think my generation went to the extreme. Like, we wanted to give our kids everything. And now we have a generation of spoiled brats. And I tell my kids that all the time. Depending, and I think if you look at it, you can see, like, yeah. And so, like Jen was saying, when it comes to discipline, if we don't mean what we say, then they're not going to think God means what he says when it comes to drinking or drugs or the people that you hang around with or marriage or self-identifying, fill in the blank. And it's not good.
What are the consequences for your actions?
Or growing up? Oh, severe. It literally probably was child abuse. It just hadn't been identified yet as child abuse.
And we have passed laws that have made it difficult to raise children in some ways. But we're talking about the fact that we need to find a way to make sure that our children understand that there are consequences for your actions. If you're in the service, and I've never been in the service, so I don't, but I've known several people that were, there are consequences if you mess up. And it can be fairly severe.
Death.
Nothing but the fact that you can die because of it. In every line of work that you're in, you talk about if you were teaching, you probably could be fired or killed. There are consequences for your actions. In everything that we do, there are consequences for our actions if we don't do the way if we don't behave the way we're supposed to. So, what I'm saying is if we raise our children and they don't know or believe that there are consequences for their actions, whether good or bad. I mean, if you make all A's, you get a scholarship to college and you get a free college education. If you fail, you'll be a ditch digger. There are consequences. If you don't behave and act the way God wants us to, you're going to spend an eternity in hell. Or in the July, Georgia heat. Now, go ask somebody.
Not much difference, probably.
That's probably not much difference. And we laugh about that. But you go outside and work in that heat when it's, 99 degrees and the humidity's 110. And you'll understand that you do not want to spend an eternity like that. We need to teach consequences. Tommy does a pretty good job with that in his sermons in teaching us that there's an upside to this and a downside to this. But we need to understand that we can change what he's predicting. But we have to work at it. That we got to do this. We got to show.
It's not going to change itself.
No, and pretty much, it's come true. I mean, he's.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing in here that hasn't happened.
That's correct. Unfortunately, that is
Yeah.
embarrassingly correct.
And then last one thing I want to read what. And I forgot last week too, because I think someone brought it up. I forgot Proverbs 22:6, which I'm sure everyone knows that one here. And train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. We just got to get the old part will be there. It's in the beginning. We've got to get the young, youthful part drilled in first. And it starts here, Bible school, worship, Wednesdays, anytime there's an opportunity to have the children in here. And then the last one I'll read is, I know I'm running late, is